Coming up, our starter year, some massive hits with unbelievable stories, including the story of an all-time legend who had to record a cheesy middle section in a song that was so bad, he had to do dozens and dozens of takes because he burst out in laughter every single time. He'd fall on the floor laughing. And the song went on to become a #1 smash despite it, as well as a song delivered by a remarkably mature 15-year-old that many scorned because they didn't think a teenager should tackle such a mature subject matter. Then there's the #1 hit that a man claimed to have written for decades. Got him free drinks, it got him fame, even in the New York Times. But in his obituary, the truth came out. He made the whole thing up. And finally, a strange novelty song that was written in 10 minutes and it was recorded on the fly by random people hanging around the studio, including the janitor. It's a countdown you don't want to miss next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember trying to master the pogo stick back in the day, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. I know you'll find something to dig on this channel. Man, the pogo stick's kind of a lost art, isn't it? Also, make sure to check out our podcast on Apple and Spotify. All right, so we ended our countdown show on 1994. So we've gone from 1961 to 1994, covering the best top 40 hits of all those years. So now we finish off the 60s with some classics from a great year. 1960 was the spark that set the decade's revolution in motion. When iconic songs hit the airwaves and helped redefine culture, fashion, and fearless experimentation, 1960 had so many enduring songs that arrived at the moment the decade demanded a new sound. It was the start of what I consider the greatest decade in music, and this is where we start. And we end at 1984, we start at 1960. Maybe in the future we do one for the 50s, let me know. But I think we're diminishing returns at this point. But I did 60 because I already had it put together and it's got some great songs in it. So this will be our starting point. So in other words, we end at the beginning, 1960. We kick off our countdown to the top 10 songs of 60 with a true classic, one I've sung as well, Beyond the Sea by Bobby Darin at number 10.
Somewhere beyond the sea.
Now, what originated as the French song La Mer in 1946, written by Charles Trenet, wasn't a love ballad at all. It actually praised the sea and gulls. Bobby Darin reimagined it, though. He rewrote it in English, brilliantly infused longing and romance, and he transformed Beyond the Sea into a completely new classic.
My lover stands on golden sands.
Circa 1959, Bobby Darin was seen as a teen idol, thanks to Splish Splash.
Splash, I was taking a bath, long about a Saturday night.
And Dream Lover.
A dream lover will come my way, girl to hold.
But then he surprised everyone with Beyond the Sea, going full-on big band jazz crooner. The gamble paid off handsomely. He proved he was more than a pop fad. He was a true artist. Darin actually idolized Frank Sinatra, and this record was his bold move into Sinatra's lane.
Beyond the sea.
Some critics even said his swagger and phrasing rivaled Sinatra at his peak. Sinatra, he reportedly bristled at the comparison, but he had to admit that Bobby Darin was the only crooner that really scared him.
I know beyond a doubt.
Bobby Darin had arrived as a bona fide swing stylist. I love Bobby Darin. He cut the track with a full orchestra, and the final version, released in 1960, moved to number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it was done in just 2 takes. That's how they did it back then. Showcases incredible vocal confidence at just 22 years of age. Even though Darin had many hits, Mac the Knife being among them.
That someone be Mac the Knife.
Beyond the Sea became his signature ballad.
The shore will kiss just as before.
Doctors actually predicted that Bobby wouldn't live past his teens, but he made it to 37. He passed away in 1973.
Sailing, bye-bye, sailing.
Our countdown to the top 10 of 60, it rolls on with Only the Lonely by Roy Orbison at 9.
Only the lonely.
In an era of bright love anthems, Only the Lonely stood tall with operatic drama, high falsetto, and full orchestration. It birthed the Orbison sound, rock, opera, heartbreak, all of it in one. The vocals soared to heavenly heights, and critics couldn't resist calling it otherworldly. Elvis even dubbed Roy Orbison the greatest singer after he heard the recording of Only the Lonely.
I know the way I feel tonight.
The young lads from Liverpool, they were also great admirers. Roy later toured with the Fab Four in 1963. George Harrison said songs like Only the Lonely shaped the Beatles' sense of drama in their music alone.
This feeling ain't right.
In early 1960, Roy Orbison and Joe Melson penned Only the Lonely, and they actually shopped it to Elvis Presley and the Everly Brothers, and both of them passed on it, surprisingly. Now, actually, to avoid confusion with Sammy Cahn and Jimmy Van Heusen's 1958 Sinatra tune of the same name,
Only the lonely go.
The song by Roy Orbison carried the subtitle Know the Way I Feel. Eventually, Roy and his team decided to cut the track themselves, and they outsold both the famous acts who turned it down in that year.
There goes my heart. There gone.
Now, it was recorded at RCA Studio B in Nashville with the famous Nashville A-Team of session musicians. Instead of the typical country rockabilly setup, they layered strings and vocal choruses, pioneering a lush, cinematic sound that influenced everyone from Roy's peers to later power ballads.
Only the lonely.
After 8 stiff singles and years of trying to get that big break, Roy Orbison finally got it with Only the Lonely. His first hit single that worked its way to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 in Canada, went all the way to the top in the UK. And some people have, there's been rumors around that this song was about, self-love. I don't think so.
Only the lonely.
Next up on the Professor of Rock Hit Parade, it's a classic that was literally written from a wheelchair. It's the compelling story of Save the Last Dance for Me by the Drifters at number 8. Man, this story's so good.
You can dance.
The story behind Save the Last Dance for Me, it's a very touching one. It begins with Doc Pomus, who fought polio as a child. He walked with crutches and later used a wheelchair. On his wedding day, he couldn't dance with his bride, Willie Burke. Yet Doc watched her dance with others, and the heartbreak really fueled the song's feeling of love and longing.
Have your fun. Oh, I know. Laugh and sing. Yes, I know. But wow.
When Doc wrote the song in 1960, it was a personal message to Willie, who was a Broadway dancer, I might add. He told her, go have fun tonight, but remember, you're coming home with me. That sorrow underpins the track, a depth that many listeners might not have realized on first listen or even second or third.
Don't forget who's taking you home and in whose arms you're gonna be.
Though the Drifters were already chart toppers, this was their first big smash with Ben E. King on lead, and his rich pleading delivery transformed Doc's private pain into a universal anthem of love and yearning.
You can dance. Go and carry on till the night is gone.
Produced by the legendary Lieber and Stoller, the arrangement fused R&B soul with a Latin-tinged rhythm, creating a cool, real danceable groove that masked the bittersweet lyrics. That's why a lot of people don't usually get it. The Drifters reached the summit of the pop charts and the R&B chart once again with Doc's tune. It was number 2 in the UK, but it sashayed into the number 1 spot in New Zealand, South Africa, Canada, and on the Billboard Hot 100 and the Billboard R&B chart.
So darling, save the last dance for me.
All right, coming in at number 7 on the top 10 in 1960, it's an innocent little novelty tune that was surrounded by a plagiarism controversy. This one's really hard to believe. Talking about Itsy Bitsy, Teeny Weeny, Yellow Polkadot Bikini by Brian Hyland.
Itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini that she wore.
Probably the greatest novelty song of all time. Itsy Bitsy, Teeny Weeny, Yellow Polka Dot Bikini. It's hard to say the title without a little chuckle and a smile. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Still one of the most irresistible novelty tunes of the rock era. And as I mentioned, there was a controversy around this harmless ditty, and we'll get to that soon. But first, this is what Brian Hyland actually told me about the song he made famous when he was only 16.
They gave me the demo, and I learned it just listening to the demo, and that was it, basically. I learned at that time about myself that I could learn songs real fast. It was just something that came to me.
She was afraid to come out of the locker. She was
So Paul Vance and Lee Pockris are the credited writers of Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini. But the origin story often told is that Vance was inspired by watching his young daughter Paul at the beach in a new bikini, a long-standing counter-narrative that centered on a man named Paul Van Valkenburg. He allegedly wrote the song under the name Paul Vance and later sold the rights when he was younger. Actually, even his wife reportedly believed this claim for many years, and all of his friends, and even newspapers. When Van Valkenburg died in 2006, his obituary suggested he had written the song. It was in the New York Times. It prompted relatives of the real Paul Vance to reconsider, only to learn that Vance was still alive and validating his authorship with royalty records. According to Vance, he bears no ill will towards Valkenburg and notes that the song has earned him millions of dollars. Man, it's crazy. Told people for years. People bought him drinks and celebrated him. But this song was #1 across the world. Everywhere. Germany, Canada, UK, and on the Billboard Hot 100.
Polkadot bikini that she wore for the first time today.
You know, some bands have the record label to launch their careers, but today you don't need a label. You need Squarespace. It's the all-in-one platform that helps you claim your domain, build a professional website, grow your brand, and yes, even get paid. All in one place. What I love most is how easy it is to offer your services. I mean, whether you're doing music lessons, consultations, or even hosting live events, Squarespace lets you showcase it all beautifully. You can send on-brand invoices, accept online payments, and even schedule appointments right from your site. It's like having your own tour manager built in. And the design? Man, it's rock star level. With cutting-edge templates and their new Blueprint AI builder, you can create a site that looks custom-made in just a few steps. It's like going into the studio with the best producers. You bring your style, they bring the tools, and together, you've got something unforgettable. So if you're ready to share your story with the world, head to squarespace.com/rock for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use code ROCK to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/rock, code ROCK. Build something legendary. Onward with our countdown of the top 10 songs of 1960. It's a track written by another talented teenager. One that's the shortest song ever to hit #1 at just 96 seconds. And number 6, I've got Stay by Maurice Williams and the Zodiacs.
Just a little bit longer.
So back in 1953, a 15-year-old named Maurice Williams sat with a notebook, a pencil, and kind of a song he didn't quite know how to finish. He'd argued with his date about staying out past 10, a small defiance that felt larger than it really was. By the time the night cooled and the streetlights illuminated, he found a line forming in his head, then rippling into a handful of lyrics that insisted on being spoken out loud.
Please, 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 tell me you're going to.
He told himself that the words, they weren't really ready. But when the moment stopped resisting, they spilled out in a rush, as if a dam within him had finally let go of everything.
Mommy, don't mind if we have another day.
The same young man, Maurice Williams, and his band, the Zodiacs, cut a rough demo of Stay. Those lyrics just came right out of him, and it was written pretty quick. That's why it's such a short song. The recording, though, captured something immediate, but it drifted with a quiet murmur. Then an 8-year-old girl heard that demo and reacted with a plain honesty that surprised the musicians. She actually leaned forward with a nod of assent, as if she'd weighed the song in her mind and found it worth listening to again.
Just the one more time.
Her response didn't change the song, but it did plant the seed of belief that they had a hit song on their hands that they thought maybe everybody could like. They just needed to keep the faith. Now, their producer, Phil Gernhardt, he carried the sense of possibility to New York, stacking the demo with other recordings and placing them before a room full of people searching for hit songs. Enter Al Silver of Herald Records. Finally, he paid attention. He asked for a re-recording because he explained that the balance of the original was too quiet to carry the weight that a real release would need. He also flagged one line, a single line in the song, Let's Have Another Smoke. That wasn't going to fly on the radio, and so it was removed from the track. Henry Gaston delivered Stay's iconic falsetto. His bright, almost celestial shadow, oh, won't you stay just a little bit longer? That cuts through the track, and it steals the spotlight for sure. That high, airy texture contrasts with Maurice Williams' lead, giving Stay its unforgettable character that's captivated generation after generation. There's also a great remake by Jackson Browne, right? It's crazy that he wrote it at just 15, and then it sat for like 7 years before an 8-year-old gave him the confidence to take it to the top of the charts. Like I said, Stay was the shortest single to ever reach the top of the Billboard Hot 100. Gosh, 96 seconds, 1 minute and 36 seconds. That's crazy. Rolling in at number 5 on our top 10 of 60, I've got Little Miss Dynamite, Brenda Lee with I'm Sorry.
I'm sorry, so sorry.
Now, Brenda Lee burst onto the scene billed as a rockabilly and country kid. Standing at a very short 4'9", she was given the little nickname Little Miss Dynamite. And then she dropped I'm Sorry. And just like her nickname, she blew up. It exploded to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the summer of 1960. In a moment that felt bigger than her age. Brenda was only 15 when she cut this song. She unleashed one of the era's most heartbreakingly mature vocal performances, and it made her the youngest artist to reach a top-tier ballad's peak.
I didn't know love could be.
Now, I'm Sorry came out of a clash between a teen star and a song that demanded depth. Since Brenda Lee was only 15 at the time, some critics worried the song's mature themes were too much for a kid. In fact, there were radio stations that wouldn't play it because they knew her age. It's crazy. The opening verse gets right to the point, though. I'm sorry, so sorry that I was such a fool. I didn't know love could be so cruel. You tell me mistakes are part of being young, but that don't right the wrong that's been done.
The wrong that's been done.
The media skepticism ended up fueling more interest instead, like it always does. It was written by Dub Al Britton and Ronnie Self, designed to fit Brenda's extraordinary emotional range, even at that young age. Ronnie Self, though a wild rockabilly performer himself, crafted a heartbreakingly soft pop ballad for Brenda. Decca released it as the B-side, thinking that the A-side, That's All You Gotta Do, was superior. But DJs chose to flip the 45, and I'm Sorry became the surprise monster hit.
Run to see.
Landing at number 4 on the top 10 songs of the 1960 countdown, it's The Sound of the Men, Working on the Chain Gang by Mr. Sam Cooke.
Working on the chain gang.
So on a sunlit stretch of Southern Highway in 1959, Sam Cooke's tour bus rolled along with the rhythm of wheels and road. Now the scenery, it flickered past like frames from a movie, till a group of prisoners toiled along a chain across a Georgia roadside, somewhere near Reedsville, along Highway 147. The driver eased the bus to a stop, and a ripple of greetings passed between Sam and the men in stripes. Sam, he handed out cigarettes as if handing out a shared breath, while his brother offered brief nods of solidarity. This moment, seemingly insignificant, in the grand scheme of the tour, it felt charged with something larger, a thread of humanity connecting strangers across a divide, similar to the uniting effect that music has on people.
Day long they work so hard till the sun is going down.
Sam went into the studio with a clear goal, to capture that organic moment of meeting a real chain gang and translate that realism into the sound of the chain gang. He urged the production team to build a sonic world that felt authentic, as if you were standing in the yard with these prisoners. The band was primed to perform live, and the spark of ingenuity, that came from studio assistant Jeremy Allen. He proposed an improvised punchy solution. His idea was to strike 25-pound weights, strike them together to mimic the clanging of chains and the hammering used by the inmates. The idea, this gave the track its tangible industrial pulse and helped ground the recording in a visceral, at-the-scene reality, which is what Sam wanted. Chain Gang, that was Sam Cooke's first top 10 pop hit since he scored one with Yosemite in 1957. Chain Gang was a smash and went to number 2 on the R&B chart, and the Billboard Hot 100 is also a number 9 single in the UK. The first top 10 in that country for Sam, the singer that many consider one of the greatest tenors of all time. Man, we should cover him in depth. I love Sam Cooke.
My work is so hard. Whoa, my.
We have another track on the countdown of the top 10 songs of 1960 that was inspired in Georgia. Talking about the great Ray Charles at number 3 with Georgia on My Mind. Georgia on My Mind is such a beautiful song. Ray Charles, he rebuilt the 1930 Hoagie Carmichael and Stuart Gorell ballad from a straightforward 3-chord tune into a soulful, blues-steeped masterpiece.
Sweet song.
He reshaped the melody, he shifted the rhythm, and he rewired the chords to deliver a fresh, emotionally charged interpretation.
Keeps Georgia on my mind.
Georgia. It's such a heartwarming story about how it came about. Now, the person that convinced Ray Charles to do his own version of Georgia on My Mind, it was actually his longtime driver, Tommy Brown. While they were driving along, Tommy said to Ray, "You're humming that thing all the time. Why don't you just do it?" Tommy, of course, referring to the 1930 Hoagie Carmichael original that Ray couldn't get out of his head.
My mind, Georgia on my mind.
Ray would frequently hum and whistle the melody of the song, but he actually didn't know the words at all. After Tommy gave him the suggestion, Ray did learn the lyrics for Georgia on My Mind, but he reconstructed it with a truly melancholy vocal that effectively changed the song into a powerful anthem for finding one's identity. The song, it takes you home. It doesn't matter if you're from Georgia or not. The listener can relate to the deep, personal longing that Ray Charles projects, transporting them back to their own roots, their own Georgia, wherever that is.
I said Georgia.
Ray Charles' Georgia on My Mind was a giant hit. It reigned at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1960. But man, its legacy is far greater. Ray canceled a 1961 Augusta, Georgia concert after learning the crowd would be segregated. Although the move drew penalties and pushback, his defiant stand turned his performance of Georgia on My Mind into a really potent symbol of his refusal to accept racial segregation. In 1979, the state of Georgia designated Georgia on My Mind by Ray Charles as the official state song. It's another song that my dad loved. My dad loved Ray Charles. He played this song all the time.
Georgia on my mind.
All right, at number 2, I've got a classic hit with a truly hilarious story. I've got Are You Lonesome Tonight? Featuring an amazingly touching vocal by the king of rock, Elvis Presley.
Are you lonesome tonight?
Are You Lonesome Tonight wasn't actually Elvis's invention at all. Came all the way back in 1926, written by Roy Turk and Lou Hanman. It blew up in the late 20s for a bunch of artists and then got a fresh spin in the 50s with Al Jolson and Blue Barons Band.
Lonesome tonight, do you miss?
J.P. Morgan had a minor hit with it in 1959.
Do you miss me tonight?
That version's probably the one that Elvis knew best. So Elvis recorded the song because his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, asked him to, since Colonel Tom Parker's wife, Marie, loved the song. It was one of her all-time favorites, so he asked as a favor for Elvis to record it. And of course, even though Elvis had nothing to do with the composing of Are You Lonesome Tonight, the king of rock and roll made it immortal with an incredible, iconic vocal performance like no other. Elvis told everyone except his musicians, Scotty Moore, Hank Garland, Bob Moore, Buddy Marmon, Floyd Cramer, DJ Fontana, and his backup singers, the Jordanaires, to leave the studio before he began singing the song for the recording session. So once the crowd dissipated, everybody was out except those guys. Elvis had the lights dimmed to create a more intimate atmosphere to get this right. He grabbed a brand new U-47 microphone and poured every bit of emotion and vulnerability into his delivery, and he made the magic happen.
We drifted apart.
But get this, ironically, the initial performance didn't set well with Elvis at all. Actually, after a second take, the frustrated cool cat actually said, "Throw that tune out. I can't do it justice." That's my best Elvis impersonation. Now, the producer and the engineer disagreed, so they actually saved the master, and it's the one that became the keeper that's become one of Elvis's most beloved songs. Now, the most distinctive twist in his interpretation, though, was the cheesy spoken word bridge.
Someone said the world's a stage and each must play a part.
A moment unlike any other version of the song or any song on radio at the time. In fact, that spoken word part was so mushy and such a big risk to cover in the middle of a song, Elvis had to do dozens of takes because it was so cheesy, he just couldn't stop laughing. He'd get halfway through it and then fall over laughing. Honestly, Elvis is probably the only artist that could have pulled it off.
Honey, you lied when you said you loved me.
And after laughing his head off so many times, he finally got it down. That spoken interlude even gained extra weight over time. Actually, in a Las Vegas performance in 1969, he even riffed on the lyrics, jokingly turning the line, "Do you gaze at your doorstep and picture me there," into "Do you gaze at your bald head and wish you had hair?" The giggles he could barely restrain It made fans love it so much more, and the so-called laughing version of Are You Lonesome Tonight became nearly as famous as the original.
And wish you had hair.
Are You Lonesome Tonight by Elvis was a #1 smash in 17 countries, including the UK and America. Actually, after Elvis's death in 1977, radio stations around the world played Are You Lonesome Tonight in tribute to the king.
Is your heart filled with pain?
Our selection for the #1 song in 1960 is coming up, but first I got to talk about the bizarre creation of our honorable mention, Alley-Oop by the Hollywood Argyles.
There's a man.
Now, first of all, the Hollywood Argyles were not an actual band. It didn't exist outside of the studio. The Argyles were just some random friends of producers Gary Paxton and Kim Fowley. They were thrown together because they didn't have an actual band when they decided to record the song. There's even a story out there that a few random people hanging around the studio participated, even the janitor. In fact, Gary came up with the name the Hollywood Argyles because the studio was located on Argyle Street in Hollywood, so they just threw it out there really quick to get the single out. And they got the single out quick.
This cat's name is Alley-Oop.
It was another rushed decision in the process. The production, it was as bare bones as you could get. For example, musician Sandy Nelson actually hit a garbage can because they didn't have drums in the studio. It was also Sandy that provided the weird screaming on the recording. It was a goof that somehow worked out. Dallas Frazier, who later became a highly respected country songwriter, wrote Alley-Oop in like 5 minutes. It was meant as a fun, just throwaway novelty track, but it became the biggest pop hit of his prolific songwriting career. And he had a big career. To make this story even funnier and even more unbelievable, some southern radio stations in the US banned the record at first because the lyric, "Look at that caveman go," was interpreted as a racial slur at the time, even though it was a lyric about an actual caveman, not the comic book. Once again, the controversy only made the record hotter. It boosted sales and airplay everywhere else. Alley-Oop, with its strange arrangement and its dinosaur sounds, grabbed the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100 just 7 weeks after it was released in late May of 1960.
Right. Get 'em, man. Like him.
All right, we're at the moment of truth. Taking the crown at #1 on our countdown of the top 10 songs of 1960. I gotta go with El Paso by Marty Robbins.
Out in the West Texas town of El Paso, I fell in love with her.
Everybody loves this song. So you had the shortest song by Maurice at 96 seconds. The longest song of the year was El Paso. So Marty played a show in the West Texas town of El Paso, and the next morning he rode El Paso in his car while cruising through Texas with his family on their way home to Arizona. They stopped at a motel to get some shut-eye, and Marty strummed a few tentative chords, letting the strings tell him what a cheap room for rent wouldn't. The city of El Paso, with its dusty gossip and heavy heat, began to unfold in his mind. Not as a place on a map, but as a stage where a lovesick gunman, doomed chorus of memories played out of mercy that was never quite earned. He sat in the corner, the door half ajar, to catch the faint echo of a radio music somewhere outside, and he just let this tale come to him. That's how he describes this.
Nighttime would find me in Rose's cantina. Music would play and
El Paso plays out like a Shakespearean tragedy. It's set in cowboy boots, of course, or certainly a great Western movie starring John Wayne or Gary Cooper. So a lovesick cowboy unalives a rival, flees and returns only to perish in a dangerous girl named Felina's arms.
my love was deep for this Mexican maiden. I was in love, but in vain.
In an era when country leaned into honky-tonk heartbreak, Marty Robbins turned this track into a cinematic epic. A story you can vividly imagine just as you listen along.
One night a wild young cowboy came in.
The track was produced by Don Law, who was famous for being the only person to make records with the legendary bluesman Robert Johnson in the 30s. One of the cool touches on the recording of El Paso was the haunting harmonies, though. Those weren't just Marty overdubbing himself. They actually came from Bobby Sykes and Jim Glacier of the Glacier Brothers, giving the track its ghostly, echoing sheen.
Wild as the West Texas wind.
El Paso became a backbone of Marty Robbins' 1959 gunfighter ballads and trail songs. The song, like I said, clocked in at nearly 5.5 minutes, and Columbia Records was certain that radio wouldn't play it. Despite Columbia's skepticism about the song's length and their fear that a cowboy song would be uncool surrounded by the breakout of rock music, the project proved to be genius. The album achieved platinum status and became a crossover sensation and a touchstone in narrative country.
My love is strong and it pushes me onward.
I can't think of another tune that comes packaged with a backstory and a follow-up. Felina from El Paso is Marty Robbins' 9-minute prequel that fleshes out the woman from the original hit.
Look at Felina, was this woman's name?
And then in 1976, Marty gave us El Paso City, a sequel where the legend seems to unfold again through a dreamlike reincarnation-inflected lens.
El Paso City.
Marty Robbins made history with El Paso. I mean, not only was it a #1 hit in Canada and South Africa, and simultaneously at the top of the Billboard Hot 100 and the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart, it also became the first Grammy Award winner for Best Country and Western Recording. In 1961, it cemented Marty Robbins as a pioneer of country storytelling on a grand scale. I mean, 1961 after the song was a hit. He was another star that died young, though. He was only 57 when he passed in 1982, 8 weeks after he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, mind you. El Paso stands as one of those classic sing-alongs that will remain enduring and nostalgic for a simpler time.
Goodbye.
Well, there you have it. We went from 1960 to 1994. And it's been so much fun doing these yearly countdowns. Let me know in the future if you'd like to do, something from the 50s or even go into 95, 96, 97. I don't know. I think we've come to the end of this, but we will definitely do more countdowns to keep the Casey Kasem American Top 40 alive. It's been so much fun. I'm doing my best here. Every day is a battle. I thank you for supporting me and helping me through it. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. And tell you what, until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.